Welcome to another dojo topic. We just got off the live call, and I'm still like brimming with all this happiness and excitement. We really partied like purple today, and that's one of my favorite sayings. And I'm so excited that you attracted this video. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into it and share my screen with you, and you get to be witnessing to this conversation that we had. And just a reminder before we begin, nothing shared here is meant to become a rule, belief, or teaching you must follow. You are always invited to take what resonates and release anything that doesn't, because your inner wisdom is the final authority. Last week, our topic was on life beyond the battle. Sometimes it can just seem like life is overwhelming and you've got to fight to get what you want, and life is a struggle. So, if you were unable to join us live or you haven't yet seen the video, I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. Today, we're talking about the freedom of being nobody. What does that mean? I don't know for you, but for me, when I say those words, it's like this settling into peace, just this peace and relaxation. So today we're going to party like purple with the freedom of being nobody. And my definition of party like purple is feeling happy, loved, and part of something so much bigger than myself. So let's party like purple as we enjoy the freedom of being nobody. Because when identity loosens, awareness remembers itself. There's a strange and beautiful freedom that appears when the pressure to be someone begins to dissolve. Not because life changes, not because circumstances improve, but because the one trying so hard to hold it all together begins to soften. So much suffering comes from protecting identities, defending stories, maintaining images, trying to become better, keeping secrets, performing versions of ourselves, all in service of preserving a self that was never fixed to begin with. What happens when the mask loosens? What happens when awareness no longer needs to prove, perform, perfect, defend, control? What remains when there is no role to uphold? You are not your body. The body is experienced. You are not your mind. Thoughts are witnessed. You are not your emotions. Feelings arise and pass. So if all of these are observed, what is aware of them? If you are not the body and you are not the mind, who are the thoughts coming to? The question is not meant to be answered intellectually, but to notice what is aware of the thought appearing. Ancient wisdom offers three ways of understanding how reality reveals itself. Rishi, the knower, Davida, the process of knowing, and Chandas, the known. Rishi, the seer, the one who witnesses, the awareness that observes thought, emotion, sensation, and story. This is not the personal self. This is the silent, knowing presence. The awareness asking, who are these thoughts coming to? Davida, the dynamic energy, the energetic movement arising as forms within awareness. This includes thoughts, emotions, sensations, resistance. The feeling of this should be different is simply life moving, like clouds passing in the sky. Energy appearing as experience. Not wrong, not personal. Chandas, the pattern or rhythm, the structure through which energy organizes itself. This is the patterning that creates recurring stories, habitual reactions, emotional loops, identity structures, familiar assumptions. It is the rhythm of conditioning, the repeated echo of a me. What is echoing within? You are not your body. You are not your mind. So, what is aware of this echo? The freedom comes when we stop mistaking the echo for what we are. The thought appears, the emotion arises, the story forms, the echo of a me is heard. What is aware of this echo? This question beautifully interrupts identification because it gently reveals the echo is being noticed, and whatever notices it cannot itself be the echo. When the question is asked, what is aware of this echo? It's not meant to be answered. It's not meant to be figured out, simply to notice the silent knowing already present before the echo appears. Let's use the formula of thought plus emotion plus assumption equals story. Through this lens, Rishi witnesses. Davida moves as energetic experience. Chandas forms the pattern story. And when awareness remembers itself as the seer, the pattern loosens. The story softens. Energy is no longer consumed defending energy and identity. When the Rishi is remembered, the Davida is allowed, and the Chandas is clearly seen. The freedom of being nobody reveals itself. A thought arises. This should be different than it is. And instantly, resistance appears. Separation appears. The me appears. Suffering appears. But before that thought, there was only this moment. Whole, complete, untouched. When the thought arises, this should be different than it is, something profound is happening. This is the self waking up to itself. Awareness, beginning to notice there is nothing wrong with this moment unless thinking makes it so. Freedom is not becoming a better somebody. Freedom is remembering you were never limited to the somebody you believed yourself to be. Freedom is the relaxation of identification, the falling away of the mask, the joy of being nobody. We create the opportunity to party like purple when we stop taking the costume so seriously, laugh at the performance of identity, rest as awareness itself, and celebrate what cannot be threatened. Purple doesn't strive to become purple. It simply is. Ask yourself, what is aware of still trying to be someone? What identity is being protected? What would soften if there were no reason to maintain that image? What freedom is available while allowing the self to be nobody? Intensity is the invitation to remember what you are. Not someone, not a story, not a role, not a becoming. Just this awareness, whole, free, beautifully, mysteriously, already home. So let's take a look at the thought formula. This is how the separate self creates a process of identification for a me. So let's think about this. Thought plus emotion plus assumption equals a story. And the result is energy used. It was so interesting to me when this formula just appeared before me one morning. As it just kind of came to me, I was looking at it and I thought, wow, This makes it really easy to identify being in the lower three koshas. It just seems so simplistic to me. And I know we've talked about the full stop in a previous dojo topic, but let's look at it again here. There's a thought, and that thought is, there is a bee flying near my head. Full stop. End of thought. That's it. It's just a thought. But here's the formula without the full stop. There's a bee flying near my head. If I get stung, it'll hurt. I might be allergic. And then, bum, bum, bum. Do you see how it creates a story and it keeps going? And that's an invitation from the demiurge that's saying, here, here, here. Feed your energy here. Put all your energy into this story. Make this bigger, badder, worse than it already is. And that's where we're spending our energy. Can you see how energy is consumed when the full stop is ignored? When a thought arises, it can be simple. There's a bee flying around. This shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't have said that. Something is wrong. I'm not enough. At this stage, it's only a mental activity, a passing appearance in awareness. By itself, it has no power. It's just a thought form arising in the field of awareness. When emotion joins the thought, the body responds. A sensation appears: tightness, anxiety, defensiveness, sadness, resistance. Now the thought feels real. The emotion becomes evidence. The mind says, because I feel this, the thought must be true. This is assumption. Assumption creates a story. The thought and emotion merge into interpretation. Now the mind creates meaning. The bee will sting me. They don't respect me. I always get overlooked. This shouldn't be happening. I need to fix this. A temporary experience becomes a personal narrative. The story solidifies identity. When identity activates, the someone appears. Now there is someone offended, someone lacking, someone threatened, someone trying to fix reality. This is the mask tightening. The self is now fully engaged in defense. The result? Energy is used and being consumed through resisting what is, defending the story, rehearsing the narrative, maintaining identity, trying to change the moment. This is exhaustion, not because life is difficult, but because thought is arguing with what is. And when we're fully engaged in the defense, we talked about this last week when we talked about the battle, life being a battle. You can't have a battle unless there are two opposing forces. So when you are relaxed and the thought of being a nobody, how could there be two opposing forces? Because the formula is not thought equals truth. The formula is thought plus belief plus assumption that creates emotional identification equals a story. And story requires energy to sustain itself. Without identification, thought passes, emotion moves, awareness remains untouched. The freedom formula is thought plus awareness equals dissolution. A thought appears, it's noticed, it's not claimed, it dissolves. The result? Energy is preserved. Let's bring home today's message with a cup of tea through Rishi, Davida, and Chandas. What we explored today isn't reserved for profound spiritual moments. It's happening in the simplest experiences, even now, even here, even in something as ordinary as drinking a cup of tea. So imagine sitting quietly with a warm cup of tea. The experience itself is unfolding. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the aroma arising, the steam moving upward, the taste touching the tongue, the sensation of swallowing. Energy is appearing as experience. Life is moving. Nothing personal is happening. It's simply the living intelligence of the moment expressing itself. Then the conditioned rhythm begins. A thought arises. I should be doing something else. Then another. I don't have time for tea. Then another. Having tea will put me behind. This is Chandas, the repeated echo of a me, the conditioned rhythm turning presence into story. The tea is no longer just tea. It becomes filtered through a story. Thought plus emotion plus identification equals energy being used. There is the noticing of the thought, the noticing of the tension, the noticing of the story beginning to form. And in that noticing, the question quietly arises, what is aware of this echo? This is Rishi, the silent knowing, the seer, the awareness in which tea, thought, and story all appear. Suddenly, the identification loosens. The thought is seen. The story softens. The tea is simply tea again. Warmth is warmth. Taste is taste. This moment is whole. The tea never changed. Only identification appeared and dissolved. The freedom was not in fixing the thought. The freedom was in remembering you are the awareness noticing the thought. The cup is still in your hands, but the somebody drinking it has relaxed. Only presence remains. So when the thought arises, this should be different than it is, notice the process beginning. This is the moment awareness can remember. There is nothing wrong with this moment until thinking makes it so. That's where Party Like Purple becomes real, because energy is no longer spent believing to be a somebody. You were never the echo. You are what is aware of the echo. That is the freedom of being nobody. Go ahead, prioritize your sovereignty and party like purple. Come back to what's real again and again until it becomes how you live. Awareness, non-duality, emotional freedom, unity consciousness. Life is an energy game. When you understand how it works, miracles become a way of life. Join us inside the dojo for deeper conversation, reflection, and expansion. There's a reason you attracted this video. If you feel the pull, consider joining us live. Could you see how the formula makes it really easy to pay attention to when you're in the lower three koshas? Son, it wasn't too long ago. This formula came to me. Like I woke up in the morning and I saw it so clearly. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense. You have a thought. And then if you don't full stop after the thought, then the emotion, the assumption, the story is created. And it made so much sense to me. It was just made it so easy to see the lower three koshas. I loved it. If you'd like any kind of support with non-duality, visit me at masteringyourbeliefs.com. And in the meantime, this is your opportunity to party like purple. Go ahead, prioritize your sovereignty. This is Nancy Muller, the one and only Life Sensei, saying ciao for now.